There we go. Welcome, everyone. Amazing. There we go. Hello, everyone joining in. Lovely to have video on if possible. You will notice that you are muted, but we'll do muted for you for the call so that Jess and I can present. But welcome. We're super excited to have you here. Just as we're gathering, we would love you to share in the chat 3 things: where you are in the world right now, what you do creatively, and then what color are you feeling today? We thought we'd throw in that one for today as something a bit different as well. So where in the world are you? What do you do creatively? And then what color are you feeling today? What color are you feeling? No right or wrong answers as always, just as we gather. Amazing. If you've just joined us, we're just adding into the chat where you are, what you do, and what color you're feeling. Great if you have video on. We love being able to see you on video. Also totally all good if you're eating lunch or something. You don't have to have your video on. That's totally fine. But it's great to engage with you. Amazing. So we're getting people adding to the chat now where they are, what they're doing, what they're feeling. I love that, Becky. So feeling green today from, LA. I love that. Digital illustration, stationery design, very cool. Hey, Ray, amazing. Good to see you in Arizona. Digital art, feeling purple. I love the color question. That was one that Jess and I decided to do just before the call. It's a good one, right, Jess?
Yes. It's so much fun because I feel like there's a lot of emotion in color. So you can say a lot with just a color.
Amazing. So cool seeing where everyone is, just filling up the chat there. All over the world, we're definitely seeing lots of people throughout the US and Canada, but also Europe and different locations as well. This is so great. I'm actually in Mexico City at the moment for a few weeks. I will be in North Carolina next week over Thanksgiving, but currently down here in Mexico City for a bit. Do you want to share where you are, Jess, just before we get underway?
Yes, I'm calling in from Los Angeles.
Amazing. I love it. So good. Great seeing where everyone is at. So keep filling up the chat, those of you that are just arriving, where you are in the world, what you do creatively, and what color you're feeling today as well. Amazing. Okay, let's get underway. I'll hand over to you, Jess, so we can get into it.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Pricing with Confidence webinar. If you don't know me, I am Jess Miller. I'm a designer and illustrator, and I have been working with creative business coach Logan Elliott for over a year now. And Logan helps me craft actionable goals, price my offerings with confidence, and keep me accountable. And he helped me double and at times triple my monthly income. And Logan has since worked with hundreds of designers and visual creatives, helping them leave their toxic day jobs and build a business of their dreams. And he has taken freelance creatives from 1K per month to 5K per month, and then to 25K per month and beyond. So now I am going to hand it back over to Logan.
Amazing. So great to be here and great to connect with you all that I haven't met before. It's so great seeing lots of familiar faces here as well. Some of our clients are here too, which is amazing. So good to see you all. Hey, I'm just going to briefly add a little bit more. So my background is that I had my own creative business for 11 years. I was in the live event space in New Zealand, and that is where I'm originally from. So those of you that don't know me, you might be going, where's that accent from? He's got a bit of a different accent. So I am a New Zealander. I don't spend as much time there these days. I spend a lot of time in the Americas and in Europe as well. A lot of the clients that we work with in our coaching business are throughout the US, Canada, and Europe as well. So that's kind of the main area there. I've been also teaching, coaching, facilitating for many years as well, for actually over 10 years now. I did a lot of work with universities and public programs right up to a master's level, basically teaching the business side of creative businesses. These days, very, very focused on helping visual creatives grow their businesses. So our kind of clients break into more or less 3 groups: people that are early stage, maybe they have a day job, they're really wanting to get this business really moving, they're doing some stuff on the side, but they really want to make this work and ideally leave the day job. The second group are like, hey, I'm doing it full time, or maybe I've got a part-time job on the side, but actually, you know what, I really want to increase my revenue, do more of what I love, and really make this work. Feeling a bit overwhelmed at the moment, feeling like I'm not earning what I want to be earning, and want some support. So that's the second group. The third group are people who have larger followings on Instagram. So this is about 10% of people we work with, a smaller number. These are people with generally over 10,000 followers. Jess included as well, which is fantastic. So that's a bit of an overview. I do also occasionally run retreats in Europe, New Zealand, and elsewhere occasionally as well. So that's a bit about me. I'm going to jump into our plan for today. We have an awesome webinar plan for today all around pricing, such an important subject. So we are going to be running a training around some really key tips. Then we're going to have time for questions afterwards. We have had some questions pre-submitted as well, so we'll start with them and then we'll get through all of the questions that we can. Now, I will be giving away 3 freebie coaching calls to people from the call here today or watching the recording. Those are basically with me, a 30-minute coaching call with me. We'll also be giving away some extra calls to people to have with all from my team as well, who's the creative business specialist on the team too. So if that's something interesting for you, we'd love you to fill out the survey. I'm going to drop in the link. That's how you apply for that. So do pop that open now if you're here live on the call. We'll make sure we include that link obviously with the notes afterwards and the recording as well so that you can open that. Look, it's a good survey to do either way, even if you're not interested in the freebie coaching call or getting on a call with Paul, fill it in because you're actually going to get a ton from learning about that. We often hear that people absolutely love that. And also we get you some free feedback as well on your business too, which is fantastic. Amazing. So that is a little bit about me. We have some amazing plans for today. So we're going to dive straight into pricing with confidence. So look, the reason we thought this is a really good topic to lean into is because that pricing matters so much when it comes to growing a creative business. A lot of people, when they're starting out or they're in the early stage of their business, they just can't imagine how they could ever earn $5,000 to $10,000 or euros or pounds per month and beyond. It's really hard to imagine. We talk to a lot of people who are like, hey, I'm earning $1,000, $3,000, and I just don't have more time. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that we all struggle with is there's only so many hours in the day. So therefore, well, yeah, I'd love to earn more, but there's no more time. So if I'm already working 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week or 80 hours a week, whatever that is, I can't double that time because I have other commitments. Maybe you do have a day job or family, or you're already just working a lot in the business. So you're like, yeah, we all want to earn more, but that would just be overwhelming to double my hours. So this is where pricing is really, really important because that is a great way to increase what you're earning without just adding more time. Because that's one answer is you want to earn more, well, you just do more, right? You spend more time. And that's not always going to be the answer to do that. So I'm going to be taking you through 5 key tips and strategies around pricing. The first one that we're really going to dive into is around how to add value to your creative offerings, right? And the keyword there is value. So the first thing to be very, very mindful of here is that you should not be competing on price. You should be competing based on value. Okay, so this is something where some people get a bit tied into exactly what they're charging, what other people are charging, and oh my God, I've got to reduce what I'm charging. I've got to compete with other people. No, compete on value. Compete on the value that you are offering through what you do. Now, the best way to figure out that value is to actually understand what the clients need. How do we do that? We ask them. Right? We need to get to understand who our clients are, what they need, because they care about a lot more than the price. Ask them, survey them, talk to them. Get to understand what their needs are, and then you can actually add value to your offerings through focusing on those needs. For example, great communication is often an important thing for many, many clients. Right? Having amazing communication means they probably will be willing to pay you more as well. So that's things like replying to emails in a timely manner, having a really good sales process. It's something that we focus on a lot during our programs. It's actually having a good process to work with clients right from when they inquire or they show interest right through to them actually confirming working with you, and then even beyond that as well. If you don't have a good system and process there, they might be going, I'm not sure if this person is worth working with, right? So that's an area you can add value to your offerings because it's more than just the quality of what you do. And this is one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is that, yes, quality is important, 100%, but they forget that they're also selling all the other stuff around the actual product or service. Things like the professionalism, the trust, the communication. And that's part of where you need to understand what are their needs and what do they actually care about. The other part of this is building trust. right? Building trust is so, so important. Trust is part of that process because effectively, when it comes to money, people are handing you their hard-earned money, whether it's the budget that they have at the organization, whether it's personally their own money, this is their hard-earned money. So they need to trust you. And they need to trust that you're not just going to disappear, run off into the wilderness with your money and not deliver the thing. So you can also add value to what you're doing by adding trust. How can you be trustworthy? Often that comes down to things like testimonials, reviews, having your information on some different sites online. Actually, do you have an Instagram page? Because if you don't, someone might be searching for that. And if you don't, they'll be going, I don't know if this person's real. I don't know if I can trust this person. As I mentioned, one of the easiest ways to build trust is to get testimonials, get reviews, have real people giving real feedback. Now, obviously, early on, you may not have lots of testimonials and reviews, and that's okay. You can still build your business one piece at a time. You might be able to start with 1, 2, or even just a few reviews to build some trust, and you can keep building it from there as well. Another part of that and building trust is that business is about relationship. And I think people sometimes forget that. We're all working with humans, right? Humans to humans. So therefore, we've got to really make sure that you're focusing on the relationship side. And we hear that again and again where people are actually willing to work with clients based on the relationships they've built, even if they are the more expensive option out there. Right? You may be a higher price than other people around, but if you've got a good relationship, then it's going to be something that's going to be very, very powerful as well. Amazing. So they're the really key things around adding value. There's a few other little things you can definitely do around that. But Jess, I would love to hear your thoughts around this as well from your perspectives and obviously your journey in business over the last year or two.
Yes, I 100% agree with Logan on this, that it's really important to have a conversation, right? They are humans on the other end of that email, on the other end of that phone call. And I think the bigger conversation you have, especially face to face, like I usually try to get like a Zoom call, especially when I'm trying to gauge a project and try to price it out. I want to see the client face to face. I want to build this relationship with them. And I want to ask them all the questions. I want to ask, like, what's the schedule and timeline like? You know, if it's urgent, like, typically you add an extra fee if it's urgent. So, you know, what is like a line list of like their exact needs, and then what kind of format do they want? Do they want it pixel art? Do they want it vector? Like, I'm going to price it like according to, you know, their needs and wants. And I think the larger conversation you have, the better you can understand your clients' wants and needs, and then you build that relationship. And the better relationship you build, they're going to be a repeat client, right? So they're going to come back to you for more projects, and so you don't always have to keep pitching yourself. You can just go back to these clients that you've been working with, and now that you have this established relationship.
Love it. It's so powerful. And just to add something to that, what you said there, like those repeating relationships, they're so, so important. We see with a lot of our clients, yes, they end up with more and more people they're working with that they keep working with again and again and again. Also, what tends to happen is they tend to spend more money, which is great, right? Because they've built that trust. They've worked with you once and they've gone, wow, the person delivered. They did a great job. Therefore, when they work with you again, they're probably willing to spend more money. So, so powerful. I love it. What we're going to do is I would love everyone to share their Instagram link in the chat, just like I have and Jess will as well. If you can grab your URL, that would be great. This is a great way to connect with Jess and I. We would love to follow you. Also, so you can all connect up here as well, because building community is such a powerful part of growing a business too. So if everyone can go grab their URL, don't just do the @tag, do the URL, because then it's going to be easy for people to click links, check out your work, see what you're up to there as well. So fire that into the chat, and Jess and I will both make sure we're following you if we're not yet, because we'd love to connect with everyone here as well. Amazing. Okay, we're going to take you into the next point, which is around diversification of your revenue streams, right? And we hear this. It's a pretty common term where people say, oh, you've got to diversify your income. You've got to diversify your income. Now, I'm going to give you a few different views around this. The first one is that a lot of people take this idea and run with it way too early in their business journey. Right, they're like, I've got to diversify my income stream. So they try and do like 8 different things. And as you can imagine, they get overwhelmed. Now, the reason that often happens is because you're creative people. right? And creative people have a lot of ideas, a lot of capacity, a lot of ability to do lots of different things, which is great. However, early on in the business, that can be really difficult because it means that you don't actually focus enough on one thing. So it's really, really important to bring in that focus early on. Now, at the same time, none of you are ever just going to focus on one thing because you're creative people. So what we usually recommend is focusing on 2 to 3 things. 2 to 3 areas of revenue is good. Look, for some people, that might be 4 to 5 areas of revenue, but that's generally people that are fully focused on their business. They have more time to spend, and also maybe they've been doing it for a while. So that's the first thing I just want everyone to be very, very aware of here, is that yes, early on, there's lots of opportunities, but often what you have to do to get stable income is focus on perhaps 2 to 3 offerings. And this also allows you time to learn a ton more about running a business. And over time, you will be able to do more. So you'll reach points, and I know Jess has also reached these points soon, and we'll share a bit about this, where it makes sense to diversify your income. And there's lots of opportunities out there around diversifying your income. The one thing I will say around this, though, is you need to be careful what these streams are. Because sometimes what we see people do is they get to the point where they're doing those 2 to 3 things, it's all going pretty well. And they're like, great, I want to diversify my income streams. They add another couple on, and then they get really distracted. And they get distracted by these other revenue streams. And their core revenue, say they're things that are like their bread and butter, their core things that they offer and make good money from, they start to reduce the revenue because they're like excited about these new awesome things over here. So I just want everyone to be very, very aware. One of the things I often see is that a lot of people get very excited about the idea of this word passive, or this concept of passive income. And I sometimes see people who get really excited about it and they really want to lean into it. And what they do is they start earning maybe $100 a week from passive income, but it compromises their core offers that they're charging. They would have been charging $1,000 to $5,000 for, but they're like, I really want passive income. And they get excited about that. And then they're losing these other opportunities and they're actually heading in the wrong direction. So it's something we need to be very, very aware of. One thing I will say, and this is something we do teach a lot about as well, is that you've got to be very careful about the word passive income. Most passive income things aren't actually passive. They take a lot of work. So we just need to be mindful of that side as well when you're choosing which areas you want to diversify into as well. Yes, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences around this as well.
Yeah, sure. And I'll just share my income streams. I have 4, which include client work. So that is any kind of freelance, like work for hire commissions. And then partnerships, which is all like the promotional social media, reels, affiliate links, any kind of like user generated content. And then art licensing. So that is art that I have already created and where I essentially just rent it out and then I retain the rights and just collect royalty. And then education, which any kind of speaking, teaching, live streams, webinars, like any kind of educational content. And in the beginning of my career, I was relying solely on client work. And a lot of us freelancers can agree that it's a roller coaster, right? You're going to have months where it's feast or famine, where you're like drowning in work. And then there's going to be a dry period where you don't have that much work. And as I've worked over the years in my own business, I have realized that it's seasonal. Like I have a slow period, and that is from January to April. And that is that's the time when I pour into writing new Skillshare classes and when I am in deep creation mode and I create collections because I know that I can build out the scalable income streams. And so then over time they can compensate for those dry months. So so by adding scalable income streams, like particularly like licensing and then my Skillshare classes, I can just collect a royalty every month. But like Logan said, it's not passive, right? I put a lot of work into it. Like, you know, some of those Skillshare classes take months and months to write and to film. So it's a lot of work, but once you get it finished, then you can kind of collect the rewards afterwards.
Love it. And everyone noticed what Jess used there. She would use the word scalable income rather than passive income because it's exactly what she thinks. She's got to put in a lot of work. and then that income can scale. And also some ongoing work to, keep that promotion as well. So good to, hear from you, Jess, in terms of sharing those experiences too. Love it. Okay, cool. So the next thing we're going to jump into is around this idea of money mindset, and specifically, how do you foster a money mindset? I'll be pretty honest with everyone. Most people in this world have pretty weird beliefs around how money actually works, right? We have these ideas that you're like taking money from someone else when you get them to buy something, and it's kind of like, there's this to and fro, and you're taking advantage of someone. We need to think about money as just a form of trade. Because that's all it really is. It's just a form of trade. And this is really, really important, is that you're not actually taking something from anyone. They are just giving you a form of value in return of value that you give them, right? So it's a value trade. It just happens to be that one of them maybe is as a service or a product, and the other one is in the form of literal dollars that can then be used to exchange for other services or products. So we just need to be very, very aware that a lot of the beliefs that most people have actually get them pretty stuck when they come to growing their own business, starting their own business, because they're like, oh, well, I don't want to charge too much because I don't want to take advantage of people. Well, the beautiful thing about business is that people can decide whether they work with you or not. They can say yes, they can say no. This is really, really important. Now, we're not going to get into when people are being taken advantage of. That's usually outside of the industries that most of you work in. Right. So obviously we're going to start talking about medicine or healthcare or things that people really need. Another whole conversation. I'm not going to get into that because there's a whole thing around that. But we're really talking about how people have the right to say yes or to no working with you. So there's actually no situation where someone's taking advantage when both people have agreed. Right. Yes, there could be taking advantage when someone has done a sneaky deal or isn't doing what they agreed or something like that. So we just need to be very aware of that. Look, part of building a money mindset is building your confidence in what you do. And that's a huge part of growing a business. I think a lot of people say, hey, I don't have great confidence. And that's just how I've always been. It's how I am. That's just me. I don't have great confidence. Well, confidence is a skill. And yes, some people might naturally have better confidence from their upbringing than others, but everyone can work on developing their confidence, on growing their confidence. It's a really important thing. And we tend to see this. People that have worked on their own confidence and that are more confident will be able to charge more, and they will have a stronger money mindset. They will have strong beliefs around their own worth as well. So sometimes what we see is people just have some challenges around their money mindset and challenges around their belief of what they're worth. So sometimes that's where the work needs to be done, some mindset work around this, and building confidence is part of mindset too. I'm going to share a couple of two quick things around how to build confidence. One of them, pretty simple, celebrate your wins. Right, something we do on all of our programs is we're always making everyone celebrate wins. Those of you that are here that are clients, you all know this. It's something that we always do is get people to celebrate. Even when you can't find a win, there is always a win. So a win doesn't have to be, hey, I brought on this new client, I sold this thing, I made this money. That can certainly be a win and great to celebrate. But also sometimes wins can be as small as, hey, I got up today when my alarm clock went off. Or, you know what, I'm still here, I'm still focused on this business and I'm moving forward. I was able to do these things. So focusing on those positive things, focusing on the wins, even the small ones, will actually boost that confidence rather than going, oh, look at how I'm failing. It's going to lower your confidence. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I'll share around this is around doing what you say you'll do. This is a huge one, doing what you say you'll do. And yes, it's about what you tell other people you're going to do. If you then do it, your confidence increases, right? So we can think about a friend that we're saying, hey, I'll meet you at the coffee shop at 12. Well, if you arrive late, you're going to feel really bad. You're going to feel a bit negative and down. You feel like you're fucking around. It's going to lower how you feel, and that's related to your confidence, right? So you showing up on time, showing up for these commitments, you're going to feel really good. It's not just about other people, though. It's about the commitments you make to yourself. So we've got to be very, very aware of the commitments we make to ourselves. For example, I'm going to do this today, or I'm going to do that. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. when my alarm clock goes off, and I'm going to go and do yoga. Now, the thing is, if you decide that the night before, and it's the agreement you've made with yourself, if you then in the morning, alarm goes up at 7:30 and you go, I can't be bothered today, I'll get up an hour later. Well, the problem is you've broken agreement with yourself, and it's going to lower your confidence. because your subconscious mind is going to start telling you, you never do what you say you're going to do. So therefore, it's going to reduce your confidence. Now, I will say with a caveat of sometimes we all need to just sleep in and feel what we're feeling. That's totally fine. That's a different thing. We just need to be very, very aware of the agreements that we're making with ourselves as well. So money mindset is really important. The one final thing I will share around this is that you may need to work on your abundance mindset as well. Naturally, most people in the world have a scarcity mindset. Right? Scarcity, there's not enough. We're all fighting over things. There's not enough opportunities. There's not enough clients, not enough money. The economy is going down. This is happening. There's no opportunities for me. That is generally what most people on average feel, more of a scarcity mindset. What we see is that successful business owners build an abundance mindset and they live in the same world. They know that there is always more opportunities out there. There's always more clients. They just need to be reaching them and they need to be taking actions to put themselves out there as well. So that's something that you can work on. It's something we work on a lot with our clients throughout our programs, is helping them to grow their confidence and build that abundance mindset as well. So love it. I'd love to hear your thoughts around this one here, Jess, because I know you've got great views on this stuff as well from your learnings.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Logan on this. It's super healthy to have a positive growth mindset around money, because a lot of us get trapped in those negative thoughts and that we think that we're always going to be like a struggling and starving artist. And like, I know I did, and especially in the very beginning, but it's changing that behavior. It's having that abundance mindset, diversifying your income streams, and just having more confidence in your own abilities that really make it attainable to like make over 10K a month. Like I remember when I first started working with Logan and we were drafting out my goals, and he's like, how much money do you want to make per month? And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I just want to make enough money to survive. And then Logan's like, well, how about 10K? And I was like, that number seemed like so out of reach in my head. I was like, okay, I mean, in a dream world, sure, like that sounds amazing. And then I did it. I crushed that goal. And it was just having that like that confidence in yourself. It changed everything. And so it really kind of fostering that money mindset comes down to like three big things. So have a crystal clear vision of how you want to grow and scale your business, and then have 100% unwavering faith in yourself, and then just taking imperfect action. And that's like the thing Logan said all the time. Like when I was feeling imposter syndrome, he's like, just take imperfect action on that. And when I started to like waver and doubt and imposter syndrome would come creeping in, that's when I leaned into Logan for creative guidance, support, and accountability.
Love it. It's so, so powerful. And I love what you shared there around belief as well, Jess. I think that's something that, once again, people need to work on, is that belief that this is possible, right? And a lot of people start out going, well, I don't know, hopefully, kind of, maybe I can do this. We'll see. And it's like, no, we've got to set that belief.
Gotta have 100%.
Right? You've got to be like, I can do this, right? You've got to be like, I can do this. And obviously, as you and I both know, yes, it can take time to build that up. Of course, that's a natural and normal thing too. Not everyone's like, okay, I believe it now, I can do it. But it's something you can work on as well. So I love that. Awesome. So we're going to take you through a couple more. And then as we get towards the end of the training piece, we'll start getting people to add any questions into the chat, keeping in mind we've already had some pre-submitted, and we'll just get through what we can within this hour. So look, the next one is really want to share some pricing mistakes to avoid. These are really common things that are seen, the common things that I see people do, get wrong. They're pretty common things to get wrong, so we're going to dive into that. The first one is that on average, most people tend to price themselves too low. Right now, that's kind of just inevitable. It's very common for creatives. They tend to price themselves too low. Now, one thing we've got to be very, very aware of is that around 20% of people that you quote, right, 20% of people that you send your pricing to, send a proposal to, they should say no. Right? They should say no. That's a rule of thumb. It can vary. It might be 10%, it might be 30%. But sometimes we work with people and we're like, so when did someone last say no? And they're like, no, like everyone's agreed to the prices. It's like, well, your pricing has been way too low. There needs to be some friction in the market. So that's the idea there. There needs to be some people that are saying no. Now, some people we talk to are like, well, no, it's a lot more than that, Logan. I don't know, 80% of people are saying no. We need to be very careful not to think that that's just because of the price tag. And it might be, right? But often what happens in our brains is when we hear someone decline You've sent a proposal. Hey, here's this here. It's going to cost you $2,000 or $500. And then they say, no, sorry, I don't want to work with you. Or they don't reply, they ghost you. Immediately we go, oh, price too high. My pricing's too high. It's wrong. Maybe I'm not that good at what I do. All of those things. That's what comes up. We've got to understand there's many things at play when people are making decisions around buying and spending money. Yes, sometimes it is price. And as I said, well, people should say no because of that price. But there's lots of other reasons people might say no. And it could be related to what you're doing, and maybe you're not quite the right fit. But it could be other things. Maybe they had something happen in their family and this is no longer a priority because they're focusing on other things. Or maybe if they're a corporate, they had their budget cut and their boss said, no, you can't do that anymore. Or maybe someone else within the organization blockaded that decision. So everyone was going great, but a key decision maker was like, no. So we need to be very aware that when it comes to pricing, yes, there needs to be some friction, but also when people say, no, don't want to work with you, don't just assume straight away that it's because of your price. Really, really important. A lot of people get that wrong. They assume it's that. And this is where, going back to one of those earlier points, often it's about bringing more value into what you do as well. A quick one, another quick tip to avoid. We don't recommend you put your pricing on your website for services. Okay, we don't recommend you put your pricing on your website for services. Now, there's always going to be an exception to this here and there, for sure. Sometimes there's exception. We've had the odd exception where we've worked with clients where maybe it does make sense. Sometimes it's just testing it out. But generally, for most services, it doesn't make sense to do that. Why is that? Well, it's your job to actually help people understand the value, and you generally can't show the full value just by putting it on a web page. Actually, instead, you need to have communication with that person. That could be having some emails back and forth or a phone call, meeting up on Zoom in person, because also that's going to build the relationship as well. You're going to understand their needs. Also, everyone tends to have slightly different needs. So if you just have prices on your website, well, people's needs may not be correct to those prices. So often instead, you need to dig into understanding what are their needs and then putting together basically a custom proposal. So that's just something that we definitely recommend. A pretty easy win if you're getting that wrong at the moment. Once again, there may be exceptions as well. Okay, this next one is a goodie. As I mentioned, don't try and compete on price. You're much better to be at the premium end of the market than the cheapest end of the market. Okay, now what tends to happen in creative industries is that if you are at the lower price end of the market, it means you'll be competing with everyone based on price. There's always going to be people out there within everything that everyone here is doing that is charging like way lower than what you are, like 10% of what you are. And you're like, oh my goodness, right? There's always going to be people at that part of the market and they're going to be competing on price. The other thing is that the clients that tend to pay those numbers are going to be really difficult to work with. They tend to be very needy, very challenging. They often want refunds. They want things changed. They want, hey, those of you that have to do edits, want lots of edits. They push the boundaries, right? Whereas when you work at a higher, more premium end of the market, you can charge more for your time and you get valued better for your time. But in addition to that, you're probably going to have less issues, right? Also, there can be challenges with all sorts of clients, we know, but we tend to see there's less challenges with people at that end. They're usually more clear on their needs. They're usually more professional in how they act as well because they're paying for a higher tier price. So just something to be very, very aware of is that ideally you want to be actually be known at the higher end. I know in my previous company, my creative company, we loved being at that top tier in the market. And we would have people coming to us sometimes going like, you guys are quite expensive, but we're still going to work with you anyway, because we focused on value. We were priced really high because we were not just focused on just the thing that we were doing, we were focused on how we did it, how we communicated, bringing in the professionalism, bringing in those other elements of trust as well. So that's a very, very good thing to be very mindful of around this as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts around these, Jess, and if you wanted to add any more as well around mistakes that people make.
Yeah, a big mistake that I make all the time and I still make is accepting the first offer and being too afraid to negotiate. And I think this takes like experience and skill, but know that there's always more money on the table, and that if there is a way for you to extend the conversation and add more value to your offer, then you can usually negotiate and ask for more money. And don't be afraid to ask for more money either. I think that that's like a big like money mindset thing that I had to overcome, was that I didn't feel like I deserved to make more money than what they were offering. But know that you don't have to accept their first offer. And then another one was just blurting out a number without any kind of like value or like doing my due diligence. Like I always try to like do research about the company, see what kind of artists they've partnered with in the past, and then you know, exactly like their values and like what they're looking for. So and a great way to kind of to price yourself too, if you're not sure like how to price yourself, is to offer pricing packages. So maybe you have just like a threshold, like you don't want to make anything lower than this because then you're just gonna lose money. So you have like a threshold. It's your basic offering, then you have a mid-tier, and then you have your premium offering that that Logan talks about, and then you can really talk up the premium offering and say like how much value that is over your other tiers. And another mistake is to continue to work in hourly rate. And so that was something that was kind of hard for me to get around, because my background is in graphic design and I worked a lot as a contract designer, and it was always hourly. They were always like, what's your hourly rate? And so as I like transitioned into illustration and I started working for projects at a flat rate, I discovered that I became more efficient and I became really good at what I did, and it took me less time. And so if I took an hourly rate, I was actually penalizing myself. I was making far less than what I would at a flat rate. And I think you can offer way much more value when you price yourself at this flat rate. I think you're just going to do a disservice to yourself if you continue to work an hourly rate. But with that said, I mean, that comes, you know, it depends on like your market, what you do. So maybe hourly does make sense for you. But for me as an illustrator, getting rid of the hourly rate was the best thing I ever did.
So powerful. I love it. And, you know, so many good tips for everyone here as well. Remembering that part of this is going to be applying some of these tips. So just be very mindful of, I love it how everyone's taking lots of notes. At the end of this call, actually go through and make sure what are the things that you can apply in the next week. I know there's great stuff happening in the chat discussing these things as well, which is so cool to see. Hey, we've got one more point that we're going to be sharing around this, and then we're going to be jumping into Q&A. As I said, we have had, we've got 4 questions got pre-submitted, so we're going to start with them. But if you do have a question, can you please just fire it into the chat, and we'll cover what we can. We probably won't get through them all, but we'll get through what we can in the questions. So feel free to fill up that chat with some questions and we'll do what we can there. Awesome. Final thing we're going to cover is talking about this idea around why understanding your target market is important. Or, well, I say why understanding your target market is really, really important. Now, what can happen is target market, the customers, the clients you're working with, if you're working with or trying to work with the wrong people, what can end up happening is you feel like you're not worth it, right? Because people keep coming back to you saying, hey, no, I'm not willing to pay that. Who do you think you are? That's crazy you're charging. I'll pay half of that. And what happens is you reduce that confidence, but you also start feeling like you're not worth what you are worth for your work. So sometimes what you need to do is not change your prices, but find different people, different groups of people, different target markets to work with. So that's why it's really good to understand who is your target market that is willing to pay what you want to charge. Right? And the reality is that unfortunately, there might be other people out there that love what you do, maybe they have a need for it, but in the end, when it comes down to it, they're just not willing to pay what you're actually worth. And that's often hard because you're like, I would love to be working with these people and I'd be excited to work with them, but frustrating that they can't pay me what I'm worth. Now, there's a few different things you can do around this. Sometimes people do have several different target markets, and sometimes they have target markets that they might be willing to offer reduced rates or discounts because they love working with them or there's a charity element to them. We just need to be very, very aware that something's still got to grow the business and pay the bills as well. And in the end, you're probably not a charity. We've got to be very mindful of that as well. So once again, when it comes to target market, yes, we've got to select the right target markets, but also that just takes time. That takes testing. So when you start and when you're early stage, you might not know. And some people say, what is the perfect target market? Well, it depends on an individual, depends what you're doing, depends where you are. Sometimes what you've got to do is select 3 and then start promoting yourself towards them. And you might learn one of them is wrong, or all three are not the right fit. The only way you're going to learn that is from giving it a go. And you go, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm going to go over here instead. So we've got to learn by doing, and that's that imperfect action that Jess was talking about as well, is we've just got to go for it and actually start connecting with those people. And we may learn it doesn't work, and that's okay. We've got to be aware that there's lots of factors in play here, but we won't always perfect it. Sometimes we see people trying to perfect exactly what they do. They have the perfect plan for their business. They've decided, they've spent 6 months deciding on their perfect target market, exact offerings, and then they go and launch the things and they're learning the hard way. Wow, none of this is actually working. I don't really quite understand what's going on. The best way to learn from clients is to get out there, start talking to them, and start trying to actually work with them as well. So this is really, really important. As I mentioned earlier, you've also got to really deeply understand their needs. So sometimes it's not really about the target market, it's more about your understanding of their needs and the way that you're selling to them. So you might have the right target market who are saying, no, I'm not willing to pay that, but it's not because of that, it's because the value that you're communicating is not the value that they connect to. So we've got to be very aware, once again, at learning about the target market. What are their needs? What do they want? What will actually help them? Do they care about quality and safety and trust? I mentioned earlier my previous company, my previous pre-edit company. We actually had fire dancers and silk walkers, right? Crazy pyrotechnics, all of this stuff. So something that we knew that our clients valued was safety, right? There's probably people that could turn up and maybe do things that were a lot cheaper, but actually we knew that a lot of our clients, who were often city councils or big corporates, safety was so important, because if someone got injured at an event, then they could be liable, right? So we knew our target market, we knew that they cared a lot about insurance and safety and having safety people on site and having safety plans and safety equipment. We spent a lot of time, and that was how we added more value to what we did as well. But it was because we deeply understood our target market and what they cared about. Some other sorts of events may not have cared about those things as much, and they cared about other things. Of course, we still made sure things were safe, but maybe we lean into other areas in terms of how we promoted, how we sold what we did, how we marketed towards those different people as well. So it's a really, really powerful thing to lean into around target market. I'd love to hear your thoughts around this one here, Jess.
Yeah, I think it comes down to really like doing your research too, and also just like allowing yourself to say no to projects. I mean, in the beginning, I felt like I had to accept every single project that came my way. And sometimes their values might not align with yours, and maybe you're just not the right fit for this project. And even if they pay a lot, like it might not be the right fit. And that has totally happened to me. Last year, I was commissioned for this big project. It was paying really well. And like halfway through, it wasn't a good fit for me. And I had to back out of it. And I felt really bad about it. Like I wasn't able to like follow through. But then I also felt relief. I was like, you know what, I was honest with myself and with them. And it just wasn't a good fit. And it was a good experience, because now I know like that's not the kind of work that I want to do in the future. And so knowing your target market is really, really important.
Amazing. It's so powerful, and really great that we're able to jump into that. Look, what we're going to do now, we're going to jump to some questions. So I know that people have just started putting some in the chat, so I've just been writing some of them down, and we'll cover some of them as well. And just a reminder as well, remember we do have that survey there too. This is the survey to get one of those freebie coaching calls. So I'd love everyone to fill that in. I'm going to drop that link in the chat again. So you've got that. You can pop it open now, so you can do it after this call. This is something that we connect with a lot of people this way. And some people we end up working with, some people we just share some tips and ideas, which is fantastic as well. You're going to get a lot of value from doing that survey. All right, jumping into questions. So the first question we got sent in was around how to price murals. How to price murals. So we do work with quite a lot of clients who have murals as part of what they do. Not everyone, but definitely a number. And look, there's a few different things at play here. Generally, when it comes to murals, there is square footage involved. So we often hear that the way that clients want to be quoted and how actually people will quote. So often it'll vary a lot depending on complexity, depending on where you're at. We often hear anything from $15 to $60 per square foot. Now, once again, that's a rule of thumb. We've seen people charge more, less, absolutely. And often when it comes to murals, there's lots of variables in terms of the complexity. There's also going to be variables in terms of where you are in the world, where you are locationally as well. They come into it too. We've seen people do small murals for $500. It's generally kind of seems to be the minimum. We've also had people do much larger murals and charge $30,000. Right, so there's all sorts of different value within the mural industry. Within that, it does depend on complexity. It also might depend on what you need to do. So if you're creating a whole new design for something and it's very custom, you might be charging more. Or if it's an existing design that you have, you might not need to charge the same amount. At the same time, you've still done the work for that at some previous point. So it might be more around how the ownership works around that. As I also mentioned, location. Location is also about where you are and where the project is. So in some cases, you may want to add an additional fee for travel and accommodation. Now, you might include that. You might want to just include that in the overall pricing. You could add that on top. Now, the risk of adding that on top and saying, hey, well, I'm actually out of town, is that they may try and seek someone who's in town to reduce that fee. At the same time, if they really want to work with you, they might be happy to do that. So a lot of our clients who do murals, they're willing to travel, and sometimes they include the fees, sometimes they just include it within their price, sometimes they add it on top as well. Once again, it depends on complexity, it depends on what they need. When you get into big murals, big complex murals, it also gets into what you need equipment-wise, right? Suddenly you might need a scissor lift. Okay, well, scissor lifts are not cheap too high. You've now got to include that in your rate as well. So like anything, it's still going to come down to what are people willing to pay? This is one of the biggest pricing lessons, is what are people willing to pay? That's what you should be charging. There's lots of interesting equations, and we'll dive into this a little bit more with one of our other questions, but actually, yes, equations like per square footage can come into play, but often it comes down to what are they willing to actually pay you, and therefore how you communicate the value around that as well. Amazing. Cool. Look, what we're going to do next is I've got a question. I'm going to read it out. This one's for Jess. So it's around licensing. So how does the price work for licensing? This is something that, Jess, you know a lot about as well. So we'd love to hear your thoughts to help everyone on this one too.
Yeah, and there are very specific questions that I like to ask for licensing that are very different from client commissions. And so typically for licensing, I like to ask, like, what's the minimum order quantity for each product? That's called an MOQ. And that'll kind of like give me an idea for how much I should charge for a royalty percentage. Because in the past, I have accepted licensing projects where they're as small as 7% per sale, but we've sold like 15,000 units. So that adds up very quickly and it becomes very profitable versus other licensing partnerships where I received a 25% royalty, which seems great, really high. It's a quarter of, the earnings, but I sold like 5 units, so I made just like a few dollars. And so that, there's a lot of discrepancy. So I always try to ask, like, what is the, your minimum order quantity? Because they typically have to order like a minimum before they can like sell it and push it through. And then also asking like non-exclusive versus exclusive rights. So if it's non-exclusive, that's great for you. You can, if it's a different category, then you can typically use that same piece of art on different categories. So like greeting card is a different category than t-shirts, which is different than tech accessories. So you can, you basically have more categories to put your artwork on versus non-exclusive is they own the or versus exclusive, sorry, exclusive rights is when they own the exclusive rights for that category. And then territory is another question to ask. And so this came up with a greeting card art that I did recently. So I licensed some art to a greeting card company based in the UK. And then another greeting card company said, we love this artwork. Can we license it? And I was like, well, like it's, just being sold in the UK right now. Is that a problem? And they said, no, actually, we don't compete with each other. We don't sell to the same stores. So it was great. It was, that was a territory question that resolved everything. I got to sell the same piece of art in 2 different places. And another is terms of agreement. So how long do you want to have this piece of art? Typically it's like 1 to 3 years, and then there is an option for renewal. So maybe that's something that you add into your contract. But maybe it's a piece of art that you want to shop around. Maybe you want to work with a different company, and so maybe you want like a shorter time frame. So maybe just a year is better for you. So there's a lot of different factors, but I think the more questions that you ask, especially when you get that contract, and if you don't know, just ask more questions. And then a great thing that I like to do is copy and paste the verbiage into Chat GPT and just say like, can you explain this in like regular terms? And it's a great way just to kind of get the contract read back to you with clear language so that you can better understand yourself.
Amazing. So powerful, and great to get your insight around these things as well, Jess. Love it. Okay. We had another question that we thought we'd dive into that was pre-sent around setting, whether you have a fixed price around what you do, or whether you ask for the budget. Right now, once again, this answer is going to kind of depend on what you do, right, within creative industry. Look, it's always good to try and ask for the budget, if possible. Now, most of the time, people are not going to actually answer you, right? That's kind of one of the frustrating things. A lot of people go, well, it depends what I need. They'll sort of give a vague answer, but you can certainly ask. Now, it's not always going to make sense in every single instance. Just around talking about whether you have ask for budget or go for a fixed price, it's good to know your numbers. So when I say know your numbers, I'm talking about understanding your minimum price that you're willing to accept based on the work. Okay, so you might have an understanding of that. A lot of people don't. They kind of are like, oh, well, my minimum's this amount, $500. It's like, well, great, if it's minimum $500, what is your time and effort that you would probably go into for that? Because you've got to do the numbers and work out what would you be getting paid per hour? Even if you're not quoting per hour, what are you going to get paid by the time you do all the equations of how much work you need to put in as well? So we just need to be very, very aware of that, is that yes, even if you do have those fixed rates or set rates, well, what are your minimums that you're willing to do things for? And what does this mean in terms of what you actually will earn yourself? Too often we hear people selling stuff for $500, $1,000, and they think that's great. And then they spend like 150 hours delivering it, and they end up going, oh my God, I got paid $10 per hour overall, right? So we've got to be very, very aware of that. And sometimes, unfortunately, when you're early stage, you've got to learn the hard way and figure it out as you go in terms of how long things take, what's required. Thinking about material costs, if that's involved, right? We're talking about murals, if there's a lift, or if the paint, right? The paint can all add up as well. So you've just got to be aware of those different elements as well. So just being really aware of that. I know you've got a good story around this, Jess, so I'll hand to you to share this around sharing the budget or asking for the budget.
Yeah, so this is a good story. This happened actually earlier this year, where a very big client like emailed me about this project, and they gave me the time frame and all the deliverables. We had a Zoom conversation. It was great. And then they asked me like, what's your estimate of services? And I said, let me get back to you. I'm going to email you. And so I kind of thought about it, and I had this like $5K number in my head, but I was like, oh, that sounds like too much. And so I was kind of like, I don't know. And so I kind of threw the ball back in their court, and I was like, well, do you mind sharing like what your budget is? Because then that would really help me price myself better. And they shared it, and it ended up being 10K. So it was double what I was thinking. And so then even from then they added a bunch of things. And so then they added more artwork, and then they wanted like a full buyout. So I was like, well, that's going to cost you. And they're like, okay, we understand that comes with a fee. So then I added that on, and then they kept adding more artwork. So they didn't really seem to have a cap to their budget. So something that started out in my head as a 5K project turned out to be a 25K project. So yeah, I think and clients don't always share their budget, but I think it's always good to ask, because you never know how much money is sitting on the table, right? So that's my advice, but because then it'll really help you also understand their market and how much money they're willing to spend as well.
I love that, and I think it's just such a great story to outline that in action. And another quick thing I'll just add to that around the budget, just be aware when you do ask for the budget, if they answer you, that does not mean that's what you have to charge, right? So they might come back and say $1,000, $500, $5,000. You could probably charge more, right? They're just giving you a number. And it's surprising, and I know you've seen this a lot with your work too, Jess, and we see it a lot with clients, other clients as well, where they kind of go and say, well, here's what it's going to cost, or I've got this higher tier, I'm offering you at this budget that you've said that, but I've got this higher tier as well. It's amazing how often people go, oh, I found some more money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
that
was, they said 10K and then it ended up being 25K. So I was like, well, it looks like you had some extra money that you pulled out.
Like, you know, this phrase of like, oh, we've opened up the budget, or we've found some more funds. I'm like, where does this money
You pulled from another department.
Exactly. It's often what it is. I love it. Awesome. So just very aware of time. Unfortunately, won't be able to get through all of the awesome questions people are sending in. But would love to jump into one here around what Hayley has shared around revisions and how to deal with revisions when you've got those, like if you're not doing the hourly rate thing. First thing we will say is that you can use hourly rate for something like revision. Sometimes it's just a really clean way to do it. Is here's the bulk price, it's going to cost you $2,000. And then if there is, you might have got one round of revisions or 2 rounds of revisions included in that rate. If you require more rounds, the hourly fee is. So you can do that, certainly an option. Just be mindful of a couple of things here. One is it's actually quite a good idea to be quite upfront about that. So I know there was a discussion around how to do this. It just means you deal with less problems later. So when they get through their 1 or 2 edits that you've agreed to and ask for another round, you can kind of say, great, you know, as per our agreement, my hourly rate is this. Just wanted to check you're happy with that. It's going to take me 2 hours to do that, about 2 hours to do that. And I'll add that to the final invoice or invoice you that, right? So, you know, that's where it's already been stated. It's not now like, oh, by the way, you have to now pay me more. Because sometimes people get a bit like, wait, what? I didn't know that. You know, people don't read the fine print. So just that's kind of one strategy. Even though you're doing hourly rates, you can still do a fixed rate there too. So you could say, you know, as being happy to do revisions and I can quote you per revision. Yeah, or you could say, hey, you know, my hourly rate is $100 an hour per, you know, 4 revisions, minimum 1 hour, right? So you might, like, it might take you 15 minutes to do, but by the time you've communicated with them back and forth around their needs and you've done the work, it's like, well, yes, maybe it only took you 8 minutes to do it, but that's your time, that's your focus. So minimum of an hour is really what you should be charging. So just a couple of things you can do around that as well. If you can do the hourly thing on revisions, try and have like a minimum on that. So you're not just doing these $15, $25 revisions again and again and again within that there too. Sometimes people just have a flat fee for revisions. That's another way to do it as well. We also just see that some people sometimes just add more revisions to their basic round as part of their package offerings. So you might have one package includes 1 round of revision, but actually you have another package that includes 3 rounds of revision from the start that they pay for upfront. So it may just depend on the clients, their needs, how you work, lots of different factors within here as well. Amazing. Look, lots of good stuff here being shared in the chat and lots of good discussions happening as well. It's just so cool to see everyone connecting. We are going to be wrapping up for today. It's just been such a delight connecting with you all. I've had such a blast. It's been a good one, hasn't it, Jess?
Yes, I had so much fun. Yeah. And this is such a hard topic to talk about too. So I'm glad I could share some stories and experiences. And yeah, it's been awesome.
And it's a big topic and it's a huge topic as well. There's so much to it as well. So look, lovely to connect with everyone. We're going to wrap things up here today. We will be uploading this recording, including the link to the survey as well. We'd love you to fill that in. You're going to get a lot from that, as well as a chance to get on some calls with myself or Paul from the team as well. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care.
Bye. Take care.